when Marco was in the kitchen, I was just filling in as a pastry chef. Well, I say when he was at Le Gavroche, because he was before that. Marco was working at Gavroche. So Gavroche was the original Gavroche in Lower Sloane Street.
Yeah.
And then when Gavroche moved to Upper Brook Street in '81, my father and uncle kept the premises in Lower Sloane Street and named it Gavroche. So Marco was there, working there. It was a classic kind of French brasserie. There was bouillabaisse on the menu and things like that. It was just a beautiful, good, hearty French brasserie, for want of another word. And then he got transferred to Le Gavroche. And as I said, I was then filling in for the pastry chef, and Marco was Marco, 100% full on. And the only person that could really keep him in control was Dad.
How would your dad keep him in control?
He would have to sit him down before service and after service. But
swim into that a little bit more, because I think that's really interesting in terms of like a managerial and leadership thing.
Yeah.
Because almost like you sometimes need these players who are kind of a bit, as I say, a bit off the wall or hard to tame, but there's a certain genius in them, so you need to learn how to manage that. And there'll be a lot of people listening to this who have that person in their team. But so before service, what would he say to him? Is there an example where he was like, where it got a bit, combative or whatever?
Oh God, yeah. Well, it was very, very fiery. I mean, Marco was a very fiery character, as was Gordon. But the old man was on the pass in those days, so that would have been in the early 80s. And he would literally grab Marco by the scruff of the neck if he was being too much of a cantankerous, I think is a good word, character. But slamming the fridge doors and throwing pans on and just getting really, really psyched up for service. He would sit him down and just say, Marco, just calm down, for fuck's sake. Come on. There's no need for this. There's no need. You've got the talent.
Why was that aggression important, though, do you think? Or why do you think aggression was so important in kitchens back then?
Mark, I'm not saying that Marco was aggressive, and I'm not saying that there was aggression in the kitchen, but he was just a fiery character.
Right, with you.
In general. And it just wasn't conducive, and wasn't conducive to achieve greatness. And Shouty Kitchens, and we've moved on, thankfully, a lot from that in hospitality. There's still some work to be done, and don't get me wrong. And there are still some dinosaurs out there that run their kitchens like that. But shouty, aggressive kitchens are not conducive to find, to the best food. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But then he would sit him down after service as well, and he would go around. And actually, Dad was like that with all the stuff. He would go around and hug everybody at the end of service.
Yeah.
1 minute the old man would be shouting at you, saying, "Get that fucking thing on the pass," or "Why the hell have you done this?" and "Get your finger out," and this and that, and really, really put the pressure on. At the end of service, he'd come around and give you a hug and a kiss.
Yeah, that's a subtle art of, because I think there's a line in the book where it says Albert was a glutton for punishment, and I absolutely. But what they say in the book is like how he would always, no matter how big the rollicking, there'd be a hug. As was it Silvano?
Yeah,
we'll talk about like the front of house. They'd basically be at each other the whole time, and then just at the end have
glass of champagne.
Yeah, that's the other thing in the book is what again I didn't realise is before Le Gavroche and everything you did, there was a massive kind of discrepancy between the kitchen and the front of house.
Oh God, yeah.
And I think the way your father describes it is almost, it needs to be an orchestra, it needs to be a symphony, it needs to kind of be this one kind of organism. Like, how did he get that to work? And like, what is the art of getting those two things to work? So I think it is, you can feel it when you go into a great restaurant, the dance of it just happening, but also it's more stark and sort of rifling when you're in a restaurant where it's not working,
100%. There has to be total trust between the front of house and the kitchen team, and they have to work as one in unison. And those years, I mean, back in the dark ages, as it were, it was us and them, and it really was a fight. who could screw one over the other.
Wow.
And it would be front of house and back of house. We don't mix. They didn't even used to go out together at the end of the night. It was no, you're front of house. We don't go out with you lot. We only go out with the chefs and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I don't know when and how it changed, but it certainly changed for the better. That now a well-run restaurant will be just one team.
Yes.
And I distinctly remember my dad instilled when we had apprentices working at the Gavroche, so kitchen apprentices, they would have to do a certain amount of time front of house. So they would work in the room to understand how their food is served, what the front of house, their responsibilities are, and how they can make our lives as chefs easier, better. And then we would also have occasionally some of the front of house team work in the kitchen for a few weeks. So, that was very, very forward thinking.
Yeah,
That was back in the late 70s and early 80s. Already he realised that this has got to stop. We can't be fighting each other.
So what would, in terms of the customer, how that would impact the customer experience? Again, it's like, I'm trying to almost like imagine we're doing this conversation in 1969, 1969, or 1967. Like, how would that impact the experience for the customer? Because do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
well, first off, knowledge. So understanding what goes into a dish, and then secondly, a chef working in the dining room will soon understand that it's not just about bringing a plate and putting it in front of the guest. It's also about timing, getting everything ready. You don't clear until everybody's finished, and just little things like that.
Yeah.
There's loads more, and vice versa. So when the waiter comes in and works in the kitchen, it's not just slap a steak on a pan and put it on a plate. There's a lot more that goes into it. All the preparation, making sure the plates are nice and clean and hot, and so on and so forth. So it's all of that. I'll tell you just a tiny little anecdote, actually, of the dark ages. We had a maitre d' assistant.
let's go a little bit closer to that.
Sorry, I'm leaning back.
That's all good.
It's my back. I've got a bad back. I'm going to keep it moving. Just a little anecdote. We had a maitre d', bless him, was a lovely, lovely man, Tony Battistella, and he wasn't an employee. He was more part of the family.
Right.
He started work actually in 1967, so he was with us on day one.
Wow.
And followed us through and was maitre d', as I said, or assistant manager at the Gavroche for many years. And I remember he was old school, very, very old school. And when Gordon was working at Le Gavroche, so this would have been in the mid to late 80s, he was on the fish section, and I don't know how it flared up or what happened, but he had a go at Tony, and there were a few words said at the beginning of service. You effing this, that, and the other, and Tony just looked at him from the other side of the pass and says, "I'm going to get you, son. I'm going to get you." And he had a table of 8. We had a table of 8 booked that night, all a la carte, so they could choose whatever they wanted. Mm-hmm. Every single starter was fish section, and every single main course was fish section. So Tony came back with this check, and it was all written by hand in those days, plonked it on the pass, and I called it out, and he looked at Gordon as if to say, "Fuck you, sunshine."
That is so good.
Gordon was fuming.
So he's basically gone over and he's sort of hammed up the
Yeah, oh God, yeah, absolutely.
You've got to get fish.
Yeah, you got, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think Gordon learnt his lesson there, but those moments you realise that actually, you know what, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be working together.
Yes.
It's not a question of us and them, front of house, kitchen. For the good of the guest, we should be working together.
Yeah.
And the good of the whole team as well. You know, it's teamwork. It's not about individuals.
Now, a quick shout out to our wonderful sponsor, Square. If you're a restaurant or you're in the food game or you're thinking of diving in, hear me out. Because running a restaurant, it's not just about great ingredients. It's not just about great vibes. It's payments, staff, menus, online orders, and that's where Square comes in. Their tools are built to make all of that smoother, faster, and let's be honest, less of a headache. Square is the all-in-one restaurant tech system with almost everything you need for day-to-day service, designed to give business owners time back to focus on what really, really matters. With Square, you can manage your business from anywhere, all from one platform, which gives you access to your sales, your bookings, orders, staff management, inventory, and reports. Whether you're a leading fast-paced quick service restaurant or a full-service kitchen, Square lets you spend more time doing what you actually love. Square's purpose is economic empowerment, being the best digital partner through intuitive, beautifully designed tech so their sellers can create the best possible customer experience. Visit square.com to learn how they can help you take your business to the next level.